Hey, everybody. Really excited to have Brent Turner, who is the elections representative for Shasta County, but longtime elections consultant and really first leader on the problems of electronic voting going back 20 years on my show right now to talk about the news that Tim Dupuis is officially going to step down, something that he had alluded to when I interviewed him in 2022 in an epic, almost 2 hour talk that you say I got him fired from because of that.
I don't know. I don't think you helped.
Uh, I was just, hey man, I was just providing the vessel. He talked. But what do you think about this news? First of all, how are you doing? Great to have you on the show, my friend.
Thank you very much, Zenny. Thanks for all your attention to this issue of elections and election system technology. Yeah, this was breaking news. I wasn't aware. You made me aware, so I didn't hear the news. But it is interesting that he stepped down, and interesting timing because, of course, we're all heading into this election that is daunting and almost here.
It didn't occur to me the timing. Do you think that well, the publication said that there were two, and I know this from talking to certain people before then, but his performance reviews were not good, and he had engendered a great deal of, shall we say, animus over the way he originally handled the 2022 election, which didn't even get any better after that. But it didn't occur to me in my pea brain when I was thinking about this that, oh my lord, we have an even more consequential election coming up. Well, next year, um, and he's leaving in March.
Right.
Are you
Okay.
ready to?
Okay. So he's leaving in March. He's not stepping down immediately. I wasn't clear on that.
Yeah, not no, I wasn't either until I read it carefully. So it doesn't make it clear that he is leaving later. It invites you to click on it. It's clickable, clickbait, sort
Okay.
of thing, right? But the bottom line is that March is going to come around. This is already September 20th, October, November, December, January, February, March. That's not too long ago. I'm going to ask you point blank because I think you should be the man. Are you interested in the job?
No, I'm not. Only because I'm committed to Shasta County, and I made that commitment, and so I'll fulfill that commitment. But if the timing aligns, and I'm no longer committed to Shasta, of course, I would consider helping any county in the country, for that matter, much less a state. So I'm dedicated to the effort. It's just right now I'm dedicated to Shasta intentionally. We're trying to prove a point there, and we, as a matter of fact, we have an open house at our elections office tomorrow.
Wow.
So that'll be interesting because we've basically taken the system and turned it upside down, and now reconfiguring everything with the ultimate goal: transparency and voter engagement. And so it's somewhat experimental, but we think we're going to have a good showing tomorrow, and people will likely embrace the new process.
I want to follow up on that in a little few minute or so. But my question to you right now is, knowing the situation with Tim Dupuis as you do, um, and how it's unfolded over the years, was it a case ultimately of him trying to do right an impossible job, or did he simply just make a lot of mistakes and ultimately not became not was no longer the right person for the job?
Well, the job is thankless, obviously, in this political environment, and it is thankless in this technology environment because no matter how hard you try, you can never overcome the lack of transparency in the software. So, as you and I have studied and conversed regarding the lack of appropriate software at the heart of the system is a problem that is yet to be addressed. And the other problems tend to cascade off that particular issue, as we saw in Alameda when there was an A/B switch internal to the system. And I think you saw the inordinate amount of control that the vendors have over the situation.
Mhm.
It just made Tim I won't say he took the fall, but it made him look bad when he couldn't get his arms around that particular election where they had one candidate uh, elected the one day, and then they pushed the button again the second day, and it popped up the other candidate as the winner.
Talking
So
about Shantel, basically.
yes, he had conflicting results,
Hmm.
which is, on its face, unacceptable. So he tried to explain it away, and I think in that it made him look like he was not up to the job. But the reality, he's another victim of the system.
Yeah, what got Tim into trouble from that, and referring to the interview that I did with him, is, and I was trying to point this out to him, and his explanation was troubling. But the problem was that each an exact exact percentage of votes was transferred to Shang Tao over each run. I mean, it was a perfect percentage, as if it were done by a machine, as if somebody literally had locked it in. Now,
Mhm.
in an honest way, you have something that's non-linear. You don't have something that's linear, like someone just said, "Boop, okay, here's 19," and bzz, right? But that's what it looked like.
Yes.
And
Well, it's
Tim,
a statistical anomaly, and not not something that we would accept on its face because of the unlikelihood mathematical that it would be exact like that. And that happens in other settings and has happened in other elections where people noted that the exactness was irregular in itself. So it's an interesting piece of this entire equation. And of course, my focus has been to make sure that we're operating with the most transparency we can muster that we have available currently, due to the fact we don't have open source software technology voting systems certified in the state of California for use, although they're being used in other states now. This is just all unfortunate. And I feel sort of bad for Tim in one way. And on the other hand, I think the lack of adult conversation and forthrightness is obvious.
and then first of all, I know Tim was going to see this. I want to thank Tim again for coming on and doing what he called a TED talk on the situation, regardless of how it went. I thought it was a great gift to the community to be as forthright. Even I could tell there were things that he doesn't necessarily want to say, but Tim really, he tried to stick the landing in terms of following his honest promise that he was going to play it where it lay, and for better or worse. And I really think that sort of set the groundwork for things, unfortunately. But that aside, talk to us now about, well, first of all, tell people what you're doing in Shasta, because from you've been around, I've known you since, I would say, 2006, and had you on here a bunch of times. You were a huge President Obama supporter. You were talking about the matter of the ability to hack votes and alter voting at a time when people thought it was a tinfoil hat conversation.
Mhm.
That's no longer, right?
No, I think we're past that now. We still haven't had the adult conversation regarding Microsoft and its inordinate control over the voting system environment as the lobbyist leader on point, and how the vendors have basically an antitrust situation in front of them, with only three vendors servicing the entire country. So
Wow.
this small group has managed to price gouge and control the psychology around the issue. Of course, it doesn't help that you have now a, a leader of our country playing into some hysterical pieces, not really understanding the entirety, but having enough foundation in his argument to really throw the whole system into turmoil. And I think that's where we are now.
Do you know? the nature of the relationship between these vendors and the president from a business standpoint? Because Trump tends to have these, because he has his own organization, have these people on boards that he's operating, or maybe they're using something that he has, service he has, or vice versa. Does anyone know or have discussed what the vendors relationship vis-a-vis the president is?
Well, I think it's obvious that the Microsoft factor that myself and my working partner on this issue, former CIA Director Jim Woolsey, mentioned, which is we don't trust Microsoft. They partner up and do business with Russia. They don't have an allegiance necessarily to the national security, but rather to their shareholder interest. So that is problematic. That is the conflict. And they're the vendors, when they have their service workers, service providers, they don't have any national security clearance. So these folks are hired randomly and may not be the sort of folks that you would want with access to the election systems. Obviously, when we talk about open source, for people that don't know that particular terminology, that merely means that the software is open to oversight, and that creates a better regulatory environment than the one currently, where you don't really have a clear look at these systems.
It has to be noted that, and I'm pulling up this article from the Times of India, that the Microsoft CEO here, shown here, about to come up, was, there it is, right, right there. There we go. Right here. Apple CEO Tim Cook, Microsoft's Satya Nadella, and more tech CEOs joined Donald Trump at Windsor Castle state banquet during the UK visit. This was on September 19th, written. And so there you are. We're talking.
There it is.
Yeah, there's.
And they were just in Silicon having a kumbaya. So what we have is the realization that the tech bros may not be our friends when it comes to national security, specifically election system security.
That is scary. And that's got to be talked about more than it is from the perspective of election security. So how do we handle this? We get a handle on the state first. We wrap what around what we can control first, which is the state of California. Have you been able to take Gavin Newsom, the governor's temperature on this?
Yes, as a matter of fact, Gavin weighed in 2006 in San Francisco when we were pushing for the county of San Francisco to move forward with, at that time, would have been the first in the country to move toward open source voting systems. Unfortunately, Gavin came down on the wrong side of the issue, and San Francisco did not proceed. That prompted us to advocate and actually garner $300 million from the California state legislature that was then given to LA County for the purpose of developing an open source voting system. Unfortunately, the folks that purported to be open source consultants on that project turned out to be lesser than, and what we call open washers, also in activist circles known as astroturfers. So the 300 million.
Can you explain who they are? That's interesting. Who are these?
That's called open source election technology, OSET, that initially started out as OSDV, and they became overnight, through random search engine optimization, the gurus in the open source elections world. Whereas there was the real group, Open Voting Consortium, did all the heavy lifting since 2000 and before, and actually was the thought leader in the environment. When the rogue group came along, commensurate with the obtainment of the 300 million, it was apparent to us that we were in a troubled situation. And in fact, that 300 million is was burnt. And
what?
Then, interestingly, both
Burnt.
Senator Padilla, who I admire for some of his later actions,
Yes.
but at the time, he and Dean Logan, the election official in LA, announced the system that they had spent the $300 million on as an open source system, and they unveiled it. Unfortunately, it was my duty, along with the Department of Defense and the Open Source Initiative, to step in at that point and rebuke that and let them know that, in fact, as they did know, that was not an open source system, and the money had been misspent. They then admitted to that under the pressure of the DoD, OSI, and myself, strangely enough, in the group of three, mentioning that they did not meet the standard of open source and therefore it was not an open source system as promised. They admitted to that, and then the issue dissolved. And so it left us really in the lurch because we were dependent upon Los Angeles breaking this conversation wide open for the rest of the nation and showing that leadership. When that didn't happen, we paused, and luckily a vendor popped up that had been watching the work of Open Voting Consortium, and they were a group called Voting Works that then,
Heard of them, yeah.
based on our work in New Hampshire with the Secretary of State there, they piggybacked on that, went into New Hampshire, and then also broke open the state of Mississippi, of all places. A county called Choctaw County, Mississippi, was actually the first in the nation to deploy the general public license open source voting systems with a paper ballot, by the way. So the system is very much the same voter experience, but you don't have that fatal flaw of not being able to look at the software and understand what's running the computers.
So this something just occurred to me in listening to you, and in the wake of the Jimmy Kimmel issue and the Stephen Colbert issue of free speech, which would seemingly be completely disconnected from each other. But here's where I'm going with this. If the president is willing to engineer the FCC to do something illegal, like say, hey, you can't be on the air and everything else, when the Federal Communications Act really says nothing about that, what's to stop him from trying to illegally control voting in the United States with the help of Microsoft, given their relationship?
Nothing at this point. The EAC is dysfunctional. The states luckily retain a good amount of control over elections, as do the counties. So it's really up to the counties themselves and the local jurisdictions to move forward. My consult to them is to move forward with better systems and to either opt out of their current contracts or, upon renewal phase, move toward the 2.0 systems. I think that'll eventually happen, but it's a race to scale, get into the swing states, and make sure that we do have confidence in our elections and that there isn't this black box secret software element.
Is there a regional, with respect to the Bay Area, regional group of people who do what you do that reach maybe, monthly or quarterly? Because it occurred to me, I never hear about this from, one group that's provides an opinion or some type of point of view of what's going on from the perspective of the officials in the Bay Area. Is there such an organization? Kind of like a Bay Area Association of Bay Area Governments, but Associated Bay Area Voting Executives, something like that.
No, that's right. You're on point. And there is, of course, ABAG, and there's other groups that are not focused on elections, but rather government consortia like that get together. But we had at one point a functional group called the California Association of Voting Officials.
Mm-hmm.
And that was an oversight group designed to monitor the ecosystem of open source voting. That became stagnant as the Los Angeles County issue unfurled, and San Francisco did not move forward as promised. So it is there in theory, but not functional. Now, there is a group, the California Association of Clerks and Election Officials, CASIO, who meet and do pretty good legislative work, but they tend to shy away from this issue of election system software, as integral to their community is this influx of monies from the vendors that keep this society moving forward. And so they're a little bit conflicted there. But I'm pushing them in real time now, as of today and Monday coming, to move forward into this space and to show that sort of integrity and commitment to democracy and to transparency, and to forego what could be the threat of the current vendors, which basically has been portrayed to me that they mention to election officials, if you dabble with that open source community when it's election night and you need us to answer the phone, that phone just might keep ringing.
Wow.
So
And then they're not going to answer it.
that's the threat, is that the service would be uh, um, lessened by the vendors toward counties that move in a more uh, technologically efficient direction.
Is that another way of saying they're going to leave it to AI control, however that software might look?
You know, please save us. The thought is so horrifying. I think in
And yet very
nuclear,
real, right?
yeah, and very very real when we talk, and it's in true, it's making its way in, and we have to combat that obviously in nuclear spaces, and I believe in elections.
I'm wondering if somebody, hey, if this sounds like at its very face a monopoly issue, why aren't we working to break all of this up? Now, I know it's a dumb question considering that, look, Disney just supposedly sacked or made Jimmy Kimmel behave just so they could get a merger and make more money. But uh, this house of cards, what it looks like to me, has to fall down, given our desire for free and fair elections, the Constitution, all the other, you know, institutional structures we worked so many years, well, decades, centuries to build, right?
Hmm. Well,
Supposedly.
that's what we're doing in Shasta. That's why I'm there. I'm glad to be associated with Clint Curtis. His work has been, for anybody that doesn't know, he testified in front of Congress when a Republican senator came to him and asked him to make vote flipping software. So he was someone that was notable previous to his arrival in Shasta County. Once he became the registrar, he was with the Board of Supervisors there, conferring, and they decided to invite me to serve as the assistant registrar, which I'm glad to do. But my part of the plan really isn't on the front end thus far, because Clint has expertise regarding transparency, voter participation, system design, and surrounding procedures to the tabulation systems. So my focus has been the software in the tabulation systems, and all the way moving reverse engineering from the tabulation back to the entirety of the system, including the uh, election management system. So we want all that to be open sourced with no secret software or corporate factors anywhere near the election. But I have to be patient, because the first thing we're doing in Shasta is shoring up the surrounding procedures. Clint is a great leader on that. And then he's promised me that when we have that tightened up, we'll move forward into conversations regarding next gen systems.
And also, you've got this Saturday matter coming up that you mentioned. Can you talk to us about that more in depth? Well,
Oh, the
today,
open house tomorrow.
open house, yeah.
Yes, tomorrow between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. in Reading, we're having an open house to show the new design of the election headquarters, and also just to walk the public through the new process that will really embrace transparency and make a lot of redundancy, a lot of security redundancy that didn't previously exist.
Hey, can the general public come? What tomorrow? Is that something you can just drive to if I put the address on? Is that okay? Or
Sure. It's on
uh,
Market Street. It's at our Market Street headquarters in Reading.
okay, Market Street, Market Street New section election headquarters, Market Street in Reading. What's the address to that, by the way? Do you know?
I don't know. I'll have to get it for you.
Okay. So I'm writing it down here so that, oops, I didn't mean to put it there, but it would appear here, right there. See that?
Mhm.
CA, it's supposed to be California, but but it says New Shasta Election Headquarters, Market Street in Reading.
Mhm.
And let's get that Shasta election, Reading, California, and address.
So I've been speaking with the Secretary of State quite a bit, her office, the Attorney General, all the involved parties, and we're really expecting a positive election to come out of Shasta County here coming up November 4th. There was previous a special election scheduled, and now with Prop 50 coming on, we're expecting a pretty healthy turnout and a different feeling around the election that they've encountered previous in Shasta with all the contentiousness.
Here's 1643 Market Street. Tomorrow or Saturday, right? It's just yeah. And what time again? It's
10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Pacific Standard.
10 a.m. Got it. 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. PST. And please send photographs or that's
I'll
something.
do it, and I'll follow up with you, Zenny, and I
Yeah.
appreciate you staying in tune on this and even giving me the news about Tim stepping down, because it's important that we keep the conversation going. And
Absolutely.
I'm looking forward to town halls, maybe on a statewide basis at some point, certainly up in Shasta, and getting all the people, especially the ones that are the most upset, at the table, because I think once they're educated regarding the strict realities that we deal with and understand what next gen systems look like and how we need to strive for that, and to prompt our Secretary of State here in California, Dr. Weber, to move forward in a progressive direction around election technology and not be a victim of passe technology, that we really can be the shining light that California deserves to be. Right now, interestingly, New Hampshire and lo and behold, Mississippi are ahead of California when it comes to election system technology.
New Hampshire and New Mississippi.
Yeah, and so I think that in itself
are ahead of California.
Are ahead of California because California has failed to move forward on this.
Not something that I would think that would be something Gavin would want to straighten out on his way to the White House. If that's his desire,
He might, but the tech bros, they fund everything, and they sell software, and they don't sell open source software. So there is the rub, and that is what former CIA Director Woolsey and I highlighted, is the conflict between Microsoft's position and the national security.
Hey, it occurs to me that maybe a possible way out of this quagmire is for the state of California, as one example, or maybe a consortium of states, to fund a development of startups that would provide a new type of voting technology that's more desirable than what is being presented by Microsoft and the organizations that are
the vendors.
The vendors, right?
Well, the good news is, fast forward, it's already done.
Really?
So it's already finished. It's already deployed. So that's what VotingWorks has done with a GPL open source paper ballot voting system. It's deployed, getting rave reviews. That part of the conversation is over, which is great. But your thought is good, that there would be the sharing of information and the sharing of resources toward a common goal with a lot of different states involved. And I think we will get there. And that's the idea of that California Association of Voting Officials, and in the theoretical work of the National Association of Voting Officials, you can view these websites at navo-us.org and see the concepts that are going to be moving forward as we see more vendors come into the space. Right now, there's only one, Voting Works. They're doing a great job, but we need more vendors like them, and that will help break up the cartel that currently is there. That's too small and obviously bordering on, as I mentioned, some antitrust issues because there's just not enough vendors in the space. So Voting Works is to be noted. They have done great work, and we're hoping that there is more acknowledgement of their work and an embracing of this sort of technology once we have these adult conversations. But we're still sort of stuck in that quagmire of whoever won the last election thinks the systems work pretty good.
Yep.
And the ones that lost feel like it's a sour grapes argument to complain, and none of them really understand the issue to begin with. I mean, very few people delve deep enough and study this issue hard enough to understand the issue of intellectual property protected software versus an open source software system.
Well, I hope conversations like this will help chisel the ice.
Yeah, it all I think is cumulative, and we're going to get there. Unfortunately, the reality is some people will have to die and when I say die, I mean they'll die of age. They'll age out, and that sort of mentality will pass away. And the new kids that are coming up, they understand technology, so they'll intuitively know that you don't want a corporation controlling your vote counts.
Right. So basically, we need the new kids attacking the tech bros, which are another type of new kids, right?
The tech bros are money motivated. I think at some point, duty to country will play in. We might have to suffer a little more. Hopefully not, but let's see where this goes. And again, I want to thank you for being on top of this, because this is not easy subject matter.
Hey, thanks, Brent. And this is already out and it's live. I'm going to put it in an email to get out to people. Make sure they come to your event tomorrow, which is today on the East Coast, Saturday, 10 o'clock to 2 o'clock.
Yeah.
1643 Market Street in great, beautiful Redding, California.
That's it, man. I'm there. I'm on the front line, and a shout out to all the people that have dedicated their lives and sacrificed their lives for this particular issue. We're trying to do some good for the state of California and the United States.
And that you are. Hey, Brent, stick around in the background. Thanks for coming on. Everybody subscribe to Zenny62 on YouTube. If you haven't done so, bookmark ZennyReport.com. That ends the stream.
Thank you.